I got a confession to make. I don't really know much about the Sentry, and I feel like it's one of those things where I'm too old now to ask without being embarrassed. I mean, I've read some things that had Sentry in it here and there, and I always knew it was kind of like Marvel's Superman, but he's a little bit crazy. There's like something wrong with the Sentry. And when he was announced to be, I don't know if he's the villain, or I guess it's supposed to be the villain for the Thunderbolts movie, I thought it would be a good time to read this Sentry by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee. This trade paperback collects the 5-issue miniseries and the 5 subsequent epilogue issues, and I definitely know much more about the Sentry now. It was a very cool story that we're going to get into in full detail. It's going to have spoilers, but if you're here just like me, didn't really know who the Sentry was and want to find out more, then this will be for you. Now, I don't collect trade paperbacks. It's really just reading material for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this up for giveaway over on my Encore page as soon as this video drops. Encore is a online selling platform. It's similar to eBay. Sellers will list their items for either like a 7-day auction or a buy it now with the best offer attached. But instead of posting pictures, they post videos. This way they can really describe what it is they're selling, maybe give you some history or backstory on the comic book, point out any potential defects, and maybe even why they priced it where they priced it at. The giveaways work the same as well. I'm going to list this up there for 6 days, so even if it's like 3 days after this video drops, you can still download Encore using the link in the description or in the pinned comment or on the QR code. You can enter the giveaway, and if you win, it's 100% free. I am also selling a good chunk of my Omnis on there, so if you purchase anything from me or anybody on Encore, just know they do offer buyer protection, and all sellers are vetted and required to upload photo ID. So right after this video, swing on over to Encore, download it, and you can search me just by searching GemMint, all one word, and enter the Sentry giveaway. I might even put up another giveaway after that, and check out what I got for sale over there while we jump in to the Sentry. All right, guys, here we go. The Sentry, Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee. Both guys I actually know personally. I was on a live stream with Paul Jenkins, and then Jay Lee I have met a number of times, and we've done some work together. So this is definitely going to be a biased review. No, I'm joking. Spoiler alert, it was a good read. All right, so the Sentry on the spine, and here's the back. You're the greatest hero of the Marvel Universe, so why doesn't anyone remember you? So that's kind of the theme of the first 5 issues. You have the 5-issue miniseries, and then the 5 subsequent issues, kind of the epilogue. 100% essential reading for the story, though. Same creative team from their Inhumans run, which I actually haven't checked out yet, oddly enough. All right, so let's jump into it. You have the Sentry, nice little Sentry logo there. So here we have the first 5 issues. Now, the other issues are not the same creative team. So you have the Sentry Fantastic Four by Phil Winslade, Tom Palmer, Tom Chu, Rick Leonardi, GOAT, for the Sentry Spider-Man with Terry Austin and Jeremy Cox. The Sentry Hulk was a Bill Sienkiewicz issue. Great painted style throughout. Jose Villarrubia. The Sentry X-Men was Mark Tex, and then the Sentry vs. the Void is Jay Lee with Jose Villarrubia once again. So it opens up with issue 1, and this is very reminiscent of Alan Moore's Miracle Man to me. You have Robert Reynolds, aka Bob Reynolds. He wakes up from the sleep. He's kind of like this overweight regular dude, kind of gives loser vibes. And it's almost the same as Miracle Man. He's got this gnawing feeling that something is off. He's supposed to be something bigger and better, and he feels this darkness that's coming, which he describes as the Void. So the Void is coming. He goes into his little happy place, grabs this serum, which supposedly turns him into the Sentry. But it's also kind of like, is he just drinking alcohol? Is he an alcoholic? What's this guy's deal? Then he gets these flashbacks that are throughout the story with these like Silver Age comics of the Sentry, comics that don't exist, but throughout this series we'll speak on it, of course. There are a bunch of cool nods. It's a very meta type of story where you get like his origin as if it were told during the 60s, and him taking this serum and sewing together his Sentry costume. This is a photo that becomes extremely important later in the story. Right now, we don't know what it is, but we get an idea of this is what the Sentry looked like during his heyday in fighting crime. Here you can see him fighting the Void, so he's kind of got like your traditional pirate costume with the cowboy hat. He fights with the Avengers. He's actually really good friends with Reed Richards and all the Avengers, and he's there, like I said, in the 60s, in the Silver Age, where they all started. So we're flashing to modern times, this very melancholy kind of look to it. who are you? He doesn't know who he is. We get a flashback to what looks to me like more of an 80s, like Frank Miller era Sentry. And none of this ever happened in the comics, but that's kind of what the meta thing is about this. Flashbacks to his fight with the Void. Him working on taking the serum. He decides to take the serum and become the Sentry once again. It shows the attacks from the Void. So the Void has like these shadow-like tendrils, and if you get stuck with them, he could make you like relive every negative memory that you had. It's pretty epic fighting the Void. So his wife comes in. Bob, what the hell are you doing? You said you would stop drinking. You kicked the dog because he thought the dog turned into the Void. So as a reader, you're like, damn, is this guy just crazy? Or is he really a superhero? You look in his closet, he's just got this trench coat or whatever. And then at the end of issue 1, you see him throw on his trench coat, which he calls his superhero costume. It's got a cape clothespin to the back. And he walks off of the building, seemingly flying. But again, this is the end of issue 1. You don't really know yet. Is he flying? Is this in his mind? Did he just jump off the building or what? Here's the cover for issue 2, and you can see guts hanging out underneath the tank top. Doesn't look very heroic, but it seems to be like he's got himself on top of this building. On top of, the crane, I should say. That's right, where the Baxter building looks like it's being rebuilt or whatever. Another flashback to old tales of the Sentry, the Armageddon Gambit, Part 4. Feels like a 90s story. It never happened. Then Reed Richard pulls up on him, and Jay Lee did a great job of drawing Reed throughout this. Like, I think it's the next page. Yeah, with him going all around the crane like that. So talking to Reed, Reed doesn't know who the hell he is. The Sentry talks and acts like they were once good friends. Reed doesn't know what's going on. We get a little flash to Thing and Johnny. Now, he says something to Reed that makes him pay attention to this unicorn that's in the Baxter building. It's almost like it's the first time they're even seeing it. It's like this eerie thing. Like, wait a minute, where did we get that from? I think he tells Reed, hey, do you remember the wedding? And like in classic comic book tradition, there was a wedding issue with the Sentry and his wife in comics. And apparently Reed Richards was there, but for some reason he doesn't remember. But this unicorn, this kind of trophy from the wedding, is kind of bringing his memory back. So here's a flashback. And at this point, I'm already like, okay, dude, this really did happen. You get a flashback to the wedding. Now we're back in modern time. Reed, he's the smartest man in the Marvel universe, or one of them. So it's kind of gnawing at his brain. Like, wait a minute, something about this interaction is really making me think. So he finds a tape. He pops it in, and Reed Richards gets a message from himself saying, but if you somehow found the tape and you are watching this message, then we're all as good as dead. Basically, the Void is coming back. Cool. So issue 3, now we get the Spider-Man stuff. Here's Bob. He's running around. What's crazy is the Hulk remembers him as the Sentry, the Golden God. The Sentry and the Hulk are boys. They go way back. So it was kind of cool to see that it didn't impact the Hulk in his monster form. And we get a lot of back and forth between Bob and Hulk, kind of solidifying that, yeah, man, this dude really was the Sentry, the superhero with the power of 7 million exploding suns, the strongest character in the Marvel universe. Basically like Marvel's Superman. But there is a little bit of a twist that we'll get to towards the end. So those epilogue issues are really great because it comes full circle with all these interactions. The Hulk interaction, the Spider-Man interaction. Here's Reed going over the footage of him meeting Sentry on top of that crane. He's just racking his brain. While Sentry's here up on top of the building, he has an introduction with Spider-Man, immediately calls him by Peter. So Peter's like, whoa, what's going on here? He doesn't remember him, but obviously Bob knows who he is. He flies in front of Spider-Man, and that's when he tells Spider-Man that he was the one that actually took this picture from the beginning, which has even more ramifications later. This is just a little tidbit. This was a great story, man. Great art, too. Jay Lee is one of the greats. He really did his McFarlane thing with the shadowing here, right? So the thing is, Peter can't see the picture. He sees a blank page. So now it's like, okay, there's something kind of blocking everybody's memory of the Sentry, of Bob Reynolds. And that's where enter Doctor Strange comes in. Doctor Strange tells Reed, like, bro, you don't want to know the answers to what's about to happen. And he kind of plays coy with him for a little bit, and then we'll jump into issue 4. You've got Bob in the fetal position, the Avengers all around him. So Doctor Strange knows what's up, and he's kind of trying to tell Reed Richards to just let it go. You know, there's a reason why we don't remember this guy, this, that, and the third. Then we get a flashback to, or a flash over to the X-Men. So the X-Men play a role in this as well. Again, Sentry was around since the beginning of all these superhero teams, so he knows Professor X. Professor X can feel him contacting him telepathically while they're all in the danger room. It's funny, Sentry remembers the OG X-Men team, so it was like, who's this Nightcrawler guy? What's up with Angel? Why is he blue? So, you know, he's missed a lot over the time. All right, so this was cool too. So this is kind of like, almost like Back to the Future vibes. Like all these issues of like Time Magazine and Clarion, like for some reason they've been skipping issues over the years. Like what happened to issue 114 of Time Magazine? It doesn't exist. Why did they skip? And it ended up, they're insinuating that it was the issues with Sentry that people are not able to see anymore. You're not able to find them. So somebody's gone through some great lengths to make everybody forget that the Sentry was a thing. And again, the whole time we have the Void, the coming of the Void gnawing at us. Here's another comic book that doesn't exist, but it's reenacting scenes from what happened in this comic book with Sentry talking with the Avengers and why they made the decision that led to the world forgetting about the Sentry. So we don't know what happens yet, but it all comes full circle later on. Again, here's like Sentry with his sidekick, and the sidekick now in real life has got like this big gash on his chest. He's missing an arm, but we get a little backstory on the sidekick character. Then we find the Watchtower. So he's able to kind of go to the edge of town and then go a little bit further. Again, it's being blocked like telepathically or through whatever type of magic, his old headquarters at the Watchtower. So he finds it, and then we're in the last issue before we get into the epilogue stuff. It's Act 5, The Betrayal. So apparently he gets betrayed, or so we're meant to think. He makes a decision with the Avengers, kind of like Planet Hulk style. Like, look, man, in order to get me and get the Void out of here, I have to go away. We have to make everybody forget who I was. And in doing so, Reed Richards tells everybody that he was a traitor and that he was corrupt, this, that, and the third. And Bob is now remembering, and Reed's remembering that he was the one who betrayed him, his best friend. Besides the Hulk. I would say the Hulk is probably his best friend. But here's the sidekick. He's suited up again. And there was a lot of cool stuff, too. Like, he opens his closet, and the costume was there. Like, it's always been there, but he's never really been able to see it before now. Reed doesn't remember why he betrayed him is what this whole scene is. And then this just ends with all the Avengers and Spider-Man at the Statue of Liberty. Void is coming. They all know he's coming. So you absolutely have to read these last 5 issues to get the ending of the story. So they all really tie the loose ends with each individual hero. So Sentry and the Fantastic Four, they all kind of pick up right where issue 5 leaves off. The Golden Boy, and it does a flashback to the events that happened during this issue of the Sentry. So it's kind of showing the history that they shared with Fantastic Four and the Sentry. Again, it's like retelling this story that's never been told, which is what's so cool about this. So the Sentry, well, the Fantastic Four going up against Void, and then the Sentry comes and saves the day. At this point now, Reed Richards is beginning to remember everything that transpired. He's remembering these events from in the past. All the dialogue and stuff, it really just ties up all the loose ends with Reed and the Fantastic Four. We find out why Reed betrayed him. I don't know if it was necessarily in that issue, but he did it on purpose so that people would, not ask questions and just forget the Sentry, so that they can prevent the Void from ever happening. So here we go, the Spider-Man issue again. We pick up right where issue 5 leaves off, and it tells the story of how Peter Parker grabbed that picture of the Sentry. It was the only time anybody ever got a picture of him because his golden aura would prevent photos. So I really love how they kind of kept showing that same shot of Spider-Man grabbing the picture. They really built it up over a couple of these issues. Here goes the Void doing his thing to Kingpin back when Sentry and Spider-Man were teaming up in those early years. And this was, again, early on in Spider-Man's career. This is like Silver Age era. He was around for the beginning of it. So here we go, Spider-Man grabbing that iconic picture, looking like an Alex Ross picture. But this one panel has been shared throughout the entire run, which was so cool. It was so fulfilling. And then the Hulk Sentry stuff. So why does Hulk trust Sentry so much? Why are they such good friends? Well, it tells the story of Hulk. Look at this. This was so cool, man. Issue 7 of Hulk. So Hulk only went up to 6 issues. And then it went into the other title. I forget what it was. It was Strange Tales or whatever. There is no Hulk 7, but that's kind of how Paul Jenkins played with this. Like, there actually was a Hulk 7, but it featured the Sentry, and that's why nobody remembers it. Isn't that cool? Then Bill Sienkiewicz art. He's one of the GOATs for sure. If you're a comic book painter, you're one of my favorites. And then, look, issue 10 of the Hulk never existed, or did it? And they use that same kind of Jack Kirby influence. It wasn't necessarily just Jack Kirby. It was, it was like a lot of Artie Rosen homages. The golden aura of the Sentry, which he was able to give Hulk a little bit of a piece of, is really what allowed him to evolve from the monstrous, mindless Hulk to the Hulk that knew what he was doing, was able to control his transformation. And one of the reasons why, Hulk is such good buddies with Bob. So again, just tying up the loose ends with the Hulk stuff. It'll do the same thing here with Angel. And it shows how Sentry was already the man by the time the X-Men were being formed. And it really just tells the story of him teaching Angel how to be a hero. It has to do with him in the danger room and being scared in a free fall. And Sentry talks him and gives him a pep talk. And it really is what makes Angel the hero that he would become, showing us this issue of Sentry and the X-Men, which never really happened, but it did happen, as weird as that sounds. So again, they kind of do, they're remembering these events, which is super cool. So yeah, the Angel stuff, how he takes out this bad guy based off of what the Sentry told him. He was kind of like a Professor X in that sense. And then we have the Sentry versus the Void, the last issue in this entire series. Again, we're at the Statue of Liberty. They're facing the Void. He's coming straight for them. Here we have the Void and what his powers do to you. And then the whole time I'm like, wait a minute. Isn't Sentry also the Void? Isn't his whole thing is that he's the strongest superhero ever, but he's kind of crazy? So we'll get there. Here's Reed Richards with the betrayal, telling the news that the Sentry was evil, this and that, and we know now that he did it for the greater good. But here's the Void. Yeah, we end up figuring out that the Void is indeed the Sentry. They are one and the same. That's why they had to get rid of the Sentry in order to get rid of the Void. It all comes full circle. They tie it in, and eventually at the end here, you have Bob goes back to being just regular Bob, no longer the Sentry. He had to give up his being a hero because the Void gets loose. So man, super cool story. I definitely wanted to get this under my belt before Thunderbolts, but I wonder how much of this story they'll use for the movie. Are they going to make it meta to where like the Sentry was always around during the events of New York and all these early MCU stuff? What do you think? Appreciate you guys watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.